Hello students, welcome back to my channel. From the previous session, we have started a new chapter, which is networking, chapter 15. So in today's session, we will be learning about OSI reference model. Now, this is a very important topic, students, so please kindly make note of it. So OSI reference model, here OSI stands for Open System Interconnection. All right. So this Open System Interconnection Reference Model, which is also called as a OSI 7-layer model, was developed by International Standard Organization, that is your ISO. Okay. So ISO, sometimes you will see OSI ISO model also. That is the reason being OSI model is developed by the International Standard Organization in 1984. Okay, and the major reason why it was developed is in order to standardize the protocols, mainly the protocols when there are two systems, system A and system B, if they're connected to the network, if they want to communicate, in order to standardize these protocols, this particular reference model was developed. Right? Now let us go ahead and see what are the different kinds of layers which are involved in OSI model. As you can see in this diagram, there are totally 7 layers. So if you're a host, that is a system from where you are trying to communicate to another host, host B. So these are the layer and this is how it is going to work. Okay. So initially you are going to have data is going to flow from application towards presentation, from presentation towards session, then transport, network, data, and physical. Okay, and from this physical layer, the data is going to pass through the network and it will receive a host. So this is my host. Communication is happening in between. So my data from the sender will start from application, go through all this, come to the physical layer. From the physical layer through wires or any network communication device, it is going to be sent to the receiver. And in the receiver, it will start from the physical, go upwards to data link, network, transport session, and presentation and application. This is how the data is going to flow. So we will go and see each one of these layers and we'll understand what is their working style in brief. All right. So let us first start with the very first one. So usually when we say one, we will start with the physical. Now let us try and understand from the application how data is going to flow. All right. So yes. So as you can see, this is how you can remember it. Application layer, presentation layer, session layer, they are the layers which belong to the software part of your system. So these 3 layers lie in the software. That's why they are called as software layers. And your network, data link, and physical layer, they are more into hardware. All right, so we will see how they are, why they are in the hardware layers. So remember, the first 3 layers, that is your application, presentation, and session layer, are called as software layers. Your network layer, data link layer, and physical layer are called as hardware layers. And the transport layer is called as a part of the OSI, which is a middle layer. Okay, so in case of a sender, like I told you, the data will flow in this direction. In case if your system is a receiver, then the data is going to flow in this direction. So let us see the very first layer, that is our application layer. So every time you want to try and access any given website or anything, there comes the very first layer, which is your application layer. So what exactly is happening? There is application layer and there is a website. User is trying to access the website. So what happens? The moment you are trying to access certain content, the request will be sent to that particular system's application layer. And written content is in the required format will be sent back. So the application layer contains varieties of protocols. Remember, all these layers work in the form of a protocols. So it has many protocols. Some examples are HTTP. This you would have seen when you are accessing any website. This HTTP is nothing but your hypertext transfer protocol, which is the basis for the World Wide Web to access the web pages. So this is the very first important protocol which we will use in the application layer. So as soon as you access any website, you're actually trying to communicate, or you are actually trying to access the application layer. So any data you are sending across to the application layer, application is going to receive it and then it is send that data into the next layer. Okay. For example, suppose you are sending an email, if at all I'm considering application layer, you have opened your Gmail, all right, and you have entered the data and you're sending the data. So how the data is going to pass through all the layers is what we are going to see now. So application layer is nothing but the layer or the view what we see when it comes to the regular website or a user interface. So from the application layer, the data will be sent to the presentation layer. So the presentation layer is concerned with the syntax and semantics of the information transmitted, concerned with moving bits around the layer. Now, what is the meaning of that? You can say that presentation layer acts as a data translator. Now, what is the meaning of that? For the entire network. So it works as a data translator for entire network. Why is because from the application layer, the data whichever has passed down to the presentation layer, this presentation is going to do the encoding of that, encryption of that, and it is going to compress the data. All right. So if at all the data is in encrypt format, if it is in a high level data format, everything what need to be done, it is going to translate it into a language which the machine can understand or the layers can understand. That is the reason the second layer, which is your presentation layer, is called as translator for the network. So once the data which is received from the application layer by the presentation layer gets encoded, encrypted, and compressed, it is going to be sent to the session layer. Now let us see what is happening in the session layer. Now in session layer, what is going to happen is session layer allows user on different machine to establish a session. For example, you might be wanting to send a message to your friend. So the communication between those two phones is established by your session layer. That is why session layer is also very important layer, because it establishes sessions between them. Sessions is nothing but the connection between them. So starting a session or ending a session is the responsibility of a session layer. So it includes dialog control, token management, and synchronization between those two systems. So it can be a client and server, it can be a two mobiles, it can be a system, any devices in the network. It is going to create a communication for you. That is the job of your session layer. Next comes your transport layer. Now, what is happening in the transport layer? So transport layer splits the data into segments. Now, the transport layer receives the data from your session layer. Okay, so remember, we have started from application. From application, the data was sent to the presentation layer. From the presentation, it was sent to the session layer. Session layer has established a communication. After that, the data has been sent to your transport layer. Now here, the transport layer, what is going to do is it is going to split the entire data which has been sent into something called as segments. So this is called as segments. So data at transport layer is called as segments. It assures dependable data transmission by receiving acknowledgement bits. What is the meaning of that? So whatever the data we are going to send from the sender, and receiver is going to receive that data in the network, isn't it? So the transport layer is going to make sure that this is dependable, as in every time a sender is sending the data, it makes sure that it is received and receiver sends an acknowledgement. So it is a very long process. So we are going to learn that. We are not going to learn that as of now. We are only briefly seeing what is the work of transport layer. So as of now, you can understand that sender is sending the data and receiver is receiving, but there has to be someone who's going to check that whether it has been received or not. The receiver is he sending me a signal to send the next packet? All those things. It is the job of your transport layer. All right. So as you can see in this diagram, the data whichever is received by session layer has been broken down into segment and it is sent to the network layer. So main job of transport layer is, first one is it will going to make the data into segments. Second thing is it flow control. It does the flow control. That is, once it gets the acknowledgement for the receiver that send the next data, only then it will send. Similarly, it makes sure that the receiver receives the data. Third one is it makes the data transmission dependable. So it makes sure that data is transferred safely to the particular destination. So after the transport layer comes our network layer. Now, network layer is also a very important part here. So it maintains the quality of the data and pass and transmit it from its source to the destination. So here the network layer is to make sure that quality is maintained. All right. So it also handles routing. What do you mean by routing? Routing is what is the best route for me to transfer the data. For example, how we use the Google map while traveling somewhere. It'll tell us the shortest route, less congested route. Similarly, the network layer is the one which will find out the best routing route for the data. Wherever there should not be a congestion, there should not be a brokerage in the network. So with what is the path with which we can send our data in a very efficient manner? That is also found out by the network layer. It chooses the best path to transmit the data from the source to its destination. Okay. Another important part, what it does is it assigns logical addresses. Okay. So you should remember there are two kinds of addresses for any system, logical address and physical address. Whenever you are sending any data, there are logical address and physical address. Logical address is like your, the physical address is like your system. The physical system, what you have, what is the number, the address is given for that, and logical address is given logically, and that is given by your network layer into your system. So as you can see, so when the data comes to the network layer, apart from the data, we have a source address attached to that. That is the address of the system from where you're sending the data, destination address, also IP header. Now this IP header will have all this routing, route, quality assurance, how you're going to check whether the received data has errors or not. All these things is going to be there in the IP header. All right. So these are the main three important tasks of your network layer. Then comes your data link layer. So from the data from your network layer is moved to the data link layer. Now, what is this data link layer? Now, data link layer, as we know, receives information in the form of packets. So, which means we should understand in the transport layer, the data was divided into segments. In the network layer, the data will be divided in the form of packets. Okay, so this is how network layer divides it. Next, the data link layer, what is going to happen here is it receives the information in the form of packets from network layer. It divides the packets into frames. This is important. So from transport layer in the form of segments, we received the data into the network layer. There it was divided into packets, and then when it comes to the data link layer, it is going to be divided into frames. Okay. So now what has happened, what happens is it divides the packets into frames and sends those frames bit by bit to the underlying physical layer. Now, after our data link layer comes as a physical layer. So once it divides it into the frame, it is going to send it to the physical layer in the form of bit by bit. Also, it encapsulates the source and destination, MAC and physical address in the header of each frame to ensure node-to-node delivery. So we will have the sender as well as the receiver's address attached at the data link layer. In the network layer, we will only add the we will be having the source and the destination address. There we are only going to add the routing data, wherein which in the data link layer, we are going to add the source and the destination address. The data link layer is also responsible to detect error. Okay, error detection is also a very important task which is conducted by the data link layer. So how it is going to do that is, there is n number of different algorithms and methods which will be used in order to find out whether the data which has been transmitted is the one which is received. All right, so these are the main tasks of your data link layer. The last layer of OSI model is physical layer. Now, physical layer is more of a concerned with transmitting of raw bits over a communication channel. So here we will be talking more about optical fiber, copper wire, electromagnetic waves. So all the data which has been passed down is going to be sent in the forms of 0 and 1s. That is your machine level language in any of the communication channel. Okay, so it also deals with mechanical, electrical, and timing interfaces. So the various kind of interfaces which we are going to use. Basically, the data from what we received from the application layer will be converted. So here it will be in the form of a data. When it comes to here, it becomes packets, segments, and frames, and then it comes to the machine level language. Now, once the data is transmitted in your transmission media, the receiver also is going to have all these layers. So it is going to convert them in the same way, that is other way. So from the physical layer, in the machine level language, whatever we have received, the data link layer will collect it, and it is going to make it in the form of a packet. Sorry, it is going to convert it in the form of frames. From frame, it is going to be converted in the form of packets. And from here, it is going to be collected in the form of segments. And if you remember, transport layer is the one which had divided the data into different bits. So here at the receiver, the transport layer is the one which is going to collect all the bits and make it into a complete data. All right, and then it will be sent to the session layer. Session layer will now decide whether to keep the link or not, or to remove the link, and then it will be sent to the presentation layer. And from the presentation layer, it will be given to the application layer, and it will be displayed on the system. All right. So these are the functionality of the 7 layers of the OSI model. I hope it is clear. I have tried to explain it in a brief way. Okay. Finally, if you have to summarize, so host layers as well as media layers we have. So we have application layer, presentation layer, session layer, and transport layer. So in these 3 layers, the data, whatever we have, is also called as data only, nothing else. So here application layer is communication application, presentation layer, as I told you, it is encryption and data representation. Session layer is inter-host communication. It creates session between the host as well as the receiver. Then we have transport layer. In transport layer, data is going to be transformed in the form of segments, and transport layer will do end-to-end connections and reliability. This is the keyword you should be remember, reliable data transmission. All right. After this, next layer is network layer, where the data is going to be converted from segment to packets. Here the logical addressing is done, and then it will be sent to the linking layer or link layer, or also it is called as a data link layer. Here, what we are going to do is physical addressing of the data is going to happen. And then at the end, we are going to convert it into a machine language. The frames are converted into a machine language. That is nothing but bits of zeros and ones, where we are going to do the binary transmission through any physical channel. All right. So this is about your OSI model. This is an important topic, students. So please try and learn them. I have tried to briefly explain as much simply as possible. All right. So that's all in today's session. Thank you for watching. Keep learning.